Hey, folks, thanks for watching and welcome everybody. Tonight we are talking about Soundgarden. Uh, awesome band from back in the day. Well, they did get back together and put another album out in the 2000s, but pretty much they're the 90s band, very well known, one of the main, bands in the grunge era, but I don't hear grunge. I just hear good music. So, anyway, and we're going to rank the albums tonight, and who better to help me in that endeavor than my two partners in crime. We got Mr. Pete Pardo and Mr. Martin Popoff. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing fine. Looking forward to some grunge talk.
That's right.
Yeah. I got a feeling.
Grunge.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, is it grunge or is it just
I know.
good music? Yeah, it's music.
Joking around with you there.
But it's funny though. Like I got a feeling that we're gonna be like all over the place. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're all gonna have the same bottom, but everything from there up is like it all depends. And the reason I say that is like I listen to the record. I mean, I was familiar with the records obviously from back in the day, but it's like you go, okay, I got my list, and then you go back and listen to, well, wait a minute, maybe that one, it's like one sneaks up above the other, and it's like they're all so kind of. It's like for me anyway, there was one I was like, and then the rest are all kind of like really neck and neck, So it's going to be interesting what everybody's order is going to be tonight. But we were talking off air, the new Saxon record. Pete did a review of it today, and as a result of that review, because you gave it like a 4, and I went and I listened to it, and it's amazing. I'm gonna say, like, on first listen, I'm gonna say 75% of that album is absolutely fantastic. And like I was saying off air, when you got legacy bands that are still putting out quality material, that's like a double blessing, right? And these guys, oh my god! And I love the fact that they got the Diamond Head guitar player in there now, because I love Diamond Head.
Brian Tatler, man, he fits right in.
Yeah, man. It's like, yeah, exactly. It's like
it's cool because he's a contemporary, right? I mean, Diamond Head and Saxon, the original, new wave of British heavy metal bands. And
he's a great riff writer too.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I love the fact. I don't want to turn this into a Saxon show. We're going to be actually next month, folks. We are doing Saxon, by the way. But I love that he comes from that old school kind of, he's got a little bit of that blues in his playing, and I love that. And I don't want to turn this into a Saxon show, but he's a great fit, and the album is killer. It's killer. So check out the new Saxon record, Hellfire and Damnation. So check that out. Alrighty, so. We got 6 records by the band here, and we're just going to go around, and we're going to go from 6 to 1 and talk a little bit about each album and why we liked it. And one thing I was going to, sort of as an opening thing, I remember when these guys came out, they were like one of these bands that was like, the cool kids really like this band. It was one of the cool kids band. Like, if you don't like Soundgarden, like there's something wrong with you. There was that sort of that vibe around Soundgarden at the time. I don't know. Did that get that impression too back in the day? They were like, you got to like Soundgarden. Did you guys get that vibe back in the day, or was it just me?
Yeah, I mean, they were like, because they were kind of like the new kids on the block, right? They kind of hit a little bit before Nirvana. Nirvana really took off, but I think, Soundgarden all of a sudden just kind of popped up in the late 80s. And it's like they were like, I know me personally was kind of like, I didn't care where they were from. No one was really saying grunge at the time. It's like, oh, just this kind of gnarly looking band from Seattle, and they kind of had really heavy riffs, and that singer was cool looking, and he had a great voice. And I remember I was kind of like, not like 100% in yet, but I was intrigued by them. And then, and this was right around the time, I don't want to get too far ahead, but that was right around the time of Louder Than Love, because I don't remember hearing of them with the first album. And then just within like, a year or two after that, they just kind of completely blew up. And what was cool is they continued to do pretty well for themselves until they kind of split up. And I looking back, other than the fact that they're from Seattle, I don't really see a lot of similarities between them and some of the other bands, and like Alice in Chains too, right? To me, they're just heavy rock and metal bands, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. To me, after all the whole grunge thing kind of died out, I kept following those two bands, and I really stopped all the other ones. And to me, I don't really see them as part of that whole subgenre thing, even though they really were, right? To me, musically, they were a little bit different, I thought.
Yeah, like back in the early '90s, that's when I was really, you know, I was doing the heavy rock and the bar band type of thing, and you're listening to, and we've covered, you know, some Soundgarden stuff, and it's like, yeah, you know, it's the heavy sort of the angst, the drop D, the, you know, the five above the root kind of chords, like all that really like, you know, and that was sort of like the vibe back then, and that was all. It's like a lot of bands took that template and kind of ran with it, you know. And yeah, they sort of really kind of established a sound, especially in that period. You know, what about you, Martin? What were your first impressions of Soundgarden?
Well, with me, what happened was, so I'd been at McMaster, finished the MBA, went and got my first job, which was with Xerox in Vancouver. So I moved to Vancouver, and we had, so 1988, we had this really hip record store called Zulu Records, and they had our own sub label and all this stuff. But they had all the imports and stuff. That's where you'd get all your you know, new wave of British heavy metal, even years earlier when I was a kid. But yeah, I remember getting the Screaming Life EP. We've got the you know, the early stuff, this and Fop, and then that first album. So I was like right in there. All the Zulu was getting all the grunge stuff because Vancouver was like your secondary grunge market. I loved it. I mean, I keep forgetting how early that Ultra Mega OK is for 88 to be that good and that good a grunge record. Because I always keep thinking, I always say, you know, all my favorite grunge albums are Nirvana, Bleach, Mudhoney, Super Fuzz, Big Muff, and the Green River album, Rehab Doll, which is really, really good. But Ultra Mega OK. Going through this exercise again, it's way up there. I mean, it should be with those ones. So yeah, credit to these guys. I mean, they were in there early and had the whole thing figured out, and they had a sound, and you know, drawing from all these different areas, and doing the best job of it, being the most professional job with this so early on for 88. So yeah, we loved it. I mean, it was the grunge, all those grunge things were just coming into that store, and I was buying every one of them. So
Yeah, you had like, I mean, you know, there's a punk influence in there. There's a lot of Sabbath in there, right? And there's a lot of just like weird chord inversions and, you know, kind of, yeah, just very dark and deep and, you know, it's like menacing, you know. But yeah, very cool. All right, so let's go. Well, everything's opposite. Let's go Pete, and then we'll go Martin. So what do you got for number 6?
So what was interesting about this exercise, and I guess whenever I do these rankings with you guys, you know, in a lot of cases, I've ranked them on my channel, but a long time ago. So Soundgarden was one of the first album ranking shows I ever did. I think it was in the first 3. So we're talking like
Wow.
4 years ago. So yesterday I went and rewatched my old episode to see if kind of where I'm at today with these albums was the same 4 years ago. And I'm not in sync with 4 years ago. 4 years ago, Pete was looking at these albums a little bit differently, which I think is cool, right? Because sometimes your perception of albums change over time. But my number 6 remains the same, and that is Ultra Mega OK. I don't think there's a bad album in this catalog. I'll say that right off the bat. I think this is the most different out of all of them. I think there are songs on this album which are very similar in nature to what came on the second album. There's a psychedelic edge to this album, and you know, you mentioned like the weirdness of some of the tracks on here, Hack. I think that's the psychedelic influence that's kind of in the music at the time, whether that had to do with the producer or whatnot. I think there's some really good songs on here. There's also some like little filler pieces, and there's like kind of a few too many of them. But I think the roots of the Soundgarden core sound is already here, like Martin said before. I mean, Flower, All Your Lives, terrific songs. Beyond the Wheel is really, really good. Mood for Trouble's good. You got a couple of covers and things here. And I really like Incessant Mace, which I think is it's really doomy and dark. And I think that kind of dark, doomy vibe is all over this album. I don't think it's yet Soundgarden absolutely fully realized at the top of their game, and within a year, they're there.
Yeah.
But I think this is a pretty strong debut album that's got a lot of good stuff on it. Like I said, it could be a little tighter for me. I think this would have made a better EP than a full length album, because to me, there's, like I said, there's like 4 or 5 tracks that are just kind of throwaway for me. But the rest of it's really, really good. Also, too, I don't think that he's not the roaring voice yet that he would be on the second album. I think that's the one thing. I think Kim Thayil's guitars, the riffs are kind of very similar to what we would hear from them on the second album, but I don't think that vocally this is that vocal god that we would know starting just a year later going forward. But he's almost there. He's almost there. But but a good album. Really, really good start, I think. So that's my number 6.
All right, cool. What do you got for number 6, Martin?
I've got King Animal. I really like this album, and I thought it would be higher. I thought it would be at least number 5, but I kept going through it and going, it's hard to recreate the magic of being the inventors of this kind of music and being there in that golden era when they blew up and they were big and stuff. So there's this element of, and it's this vague dissatisfaction I have with the whole Alice in Chains thing too. I mean, they're doing a great job of that stuff, but there's a little bit of that trying to be that sound and just trying to, okay, we need one of these, we need one of these, we need one of these sort of thing. And as I went through it, I also started feeling a little bit of Chris Cornell Scream, the solo album in there, but not a lot, but even a little more of Audio Slave in it, right? So I was starting to feel a little bit of that. There's something here that's feeling a little bit too modern sort of thing. But love the first track, Been Away Too Long. That's really cool. Non-state actor as well, geometric, cool. The other thing I learned doing this exercise, which blew me away, like I went through and played everything again, little bits of every song just to remind myself. And there's so many that I realized I barely even remembered or knew them, which is really weird because I played a lot of Soundgarden. But the other thing that I found hilarious is they really do that odd time signature stuff all the time. I just constantly doing that, right? Or dropping a beat or adding a beat. Like there's a lot of tricky stuff, right? And they do that here as well. But it just feels a little bit too poppy, a little bit try too hard. I came out of this one feeling a little bit surprised by how I had it knocked down my list a tiny bit, because when it came out, I thought it was genius, and it really is super complicated, interesting, non-obvious writing, because these guys are near geniuses at doing this. But yeah, I kind of had to put it number 6.
Yeah. Well, my number 6, I'm in line with Pete. Ultra Omega OK. The opening track, Flowers, that sounds like an okay Soundgarden song. I mean, and it was sort of a sign of future things to come. But I just found this record, I guess they were just finding their footing, a lot of experimentation, a lot of same sounding kind of, maybe, I don't know, psychedelic, or it's like they were just experimenting, And I did read somewhere that, they weren't thrilled with the producer, but honestly, I just think the songs weren't there. I mean, compared to, the amazing thing is, for me that I noticed, is there was a massive leap from this to the second record, like absolutely huge. It's like they went from kind of experimenting and trying a bunch of different things, and then they absolutely nailed it on the second record. So yeah, I can't even really name any tracks on this record outside of Flowers. This one really leaves me flat, and this is going back to what I was saying, but the cool kids like the record. It must be, but I'm even today, it's like, it's Soundgarden, but it's not Soundgarden. Do you know what I mean? It just, they weren't quite there yet. So, for that reason, it kind of still sits at the bottom of the pile for me. And from this point onward, like, I mean, our list could, that's what I'm saying, like, everything here is sort of neck and neck. Like next week, I could have a whole different list of the next 5, because it's just, I mean, the songs are so good, and the records are so close in how good they are. So, but yeah, this one always kind of sits at the bottom for me. So there you go. All righty. What do we got for number 5, Pete?
Real quick, what's interesting in revisiting the debut album again, it's like I really think that Soundgarden kind of predated and were like a precursor to that big like psychedelic stoner rock movement of the early 90s just a couple years later. You
Yeah.
listen to that debut and all of a sudden you go listen to like Caius and a lot of those kind of bands and you're like, man, it's like Soundgarden was kind of doing that like 3-4 years before. So when you really think about it, even though we're saying maybe not a great album, but I think very influential in stuff that was to come, not necessarily even from Seattle.
Yeah.
So all right, my number 5. So here's where everything gets a little wonky from when I did this 4 years ago. So in re-listening to these albums, I have Down on the Upside as number 5, and I had this higher last time around. I think this is a good album. This is the last album before the breakup for many, many years, and there's some really good stuff on here. It's a long album. There's 16 songs on here. It's over an hour, but Pretty Noose and Rhinosaur are really good. Blow Up the Outside World is cool. Tighter and Tighter is good. So much to choose from here. I think it's all really solid. There's a handful of tracks on here that I think kind of meander and are lacking the oomph of the stuff from the albums before. And I don't think there's as much like readily accessible tracks on this album, especially like the album that came before it, certainly, but I think it still carries the Soundgarden sound. Maybe it sounds a little tired. I know, there's all sorts of stuff going on in the band at the time, but I think it's strong. There's a good amount of really, really tight tracks on here, and it's a fun listen. It's just a long listen, and I think this album might have been a little bit better, cut it down to 10, 11 tracks and maybe a much tighter, stronger album. But what's good on here is really good, so number 5 for me.
Yeah, I'm going to mention that a few times. I think some of the records could have shaved off a little bit of it.
I mean, we're in the middle of the 90s was known for, hey, we have CDs now. We can
let's
70, 80 minute long albums, right? And everybody was doing it. And that's at the time we're like, yeah, we're getting more for our money. But now we look back on it, it's like, maybe a 45-minute record is the way to go, right?
Yeah, it would have been tighter, yeah. All right. What's your number 5, Martin?
I think we're going to disagree a fair bit here, but we're talking 6 albums and they're close in ranking, but you guys are arguing your points so well and so emphatically that I feel like I'm going to be disagreeing with you. So I've got Louder Than Love in here. I've got, September 5th, 89, first one for A&M. I'll tell you why. And I felt this walking around like over the last while, even before we were even, this one I've been playing a lot for some reason just to check it out sort of thing. And I really think, and they've mentioned this too, like they felt like the production of this one might have been too clean in 80s. And there's this weird kind of techie Terry Date sound. It's not like Pantera all the way, but so that's one thing that's always bothered me about this album. It's got a lot of that to it. But what really bothers me about it is I think this one might have the most slowy, doomy, circular sort of stuff on it. It is really kind of slow and doomy all the time. And I noticed a pattern with this band. They almost like as a palate cleanser do those fast hardcore songs just to, we've hit you with too much doom here. Let's now show how
break it up
sort of thing. Right. So this one, not crazy about it. Full On Kevin's Mom is really cool on here. And Big Dumb Sex is pretty cool. It's got the big chorus on it, right? Of course, Ugly Truth is pretty cool. But yeah, there's a lot of doomy stuff on here, and I don't think the production's very good. It's the last one with Hero. Chris said that he ended up having to write most of the album because he said Hero had excommunicated himself or something. So that's my first part of the argument. My next one I'll argue for one you guys have put down already when we get to number 4. So, number 5, Louder Than Love.
Well, you know what? At this point, somebody's going to disagree because, again, these are all sort of really neck and neck, right? Yeah. So, I know my pick for number 5 is going to be what? So, anyways, that being said, my number 5 is Bad Motorfinger. Wow. I know. What the hell?
You guys are on a different planet from me tonight. Holy cow.
Home of Rusty Cage, man. And Rusty Cage is one of my absolute favorite Soundgarden tracks. Outshine is awesome, sludgy, Sabbath-like, Room 1,000 Years Wide, cool, great riff. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff on here. Drawing Flies, cool rocker, Holy Water, very cool. Outside of those tunes, though, the deeper cuts, they just don't do a lot for me. It's like you were saying, it's like the sort of the same tone throughout and the same tone, and you want something to break it up, and you want a little bit of variety. And they when they hit you with the great riffs and the great, it's like, oh, your ears perk up, but then there's these other tunes that just kind of and it's just a similar tone throughout the whole record. And I find this with most of their albums. As I said, the good songs are really good, and then you've got the rest are kind of a chore. So hey, let's shave some songs off of this and let's present like 10 really good songs. There's just, like you said, maybe the CD age, and they just kept piling stuff on, and just unnecessary. It just, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so that's my number 5, Bad Motorfinger. Again, a great record. I mean, none of these are bad, right? Ultra Omega, I'm gonna say is nah. But the rest of these, they're like either, they're all good from here on upwards. So anyway, there you go. What do you got for number 4, Pete? Or number 5, sorry. Oh, no,
right.
number 4. I just did 5.
Number 4,
sorry.
yeah. So this is the one that moved up quite a bit for me. So in re-listening to this, I hadn't heard it. I haven't listened to this since I ranked this catalog back 4 years ago. I'm going to go with King Animal. And I'll tell you why. Because for whatever reason, I always had this impression, Martin was kind of hinting at it before, that it's kind of mellow and poppy and whatnot. And I found in revisiting this that there's a good amount of heft to a lot of these songs, and it's a moody album. There are some light songs, but the heavy songs I think are really good. And then there's some tracks that have like a Zeppelin-y vibe going on. And maybe that's, Martin hinted at they use these odd time signatures, and the arrangements are actually kind of complex. And I found really drawn to this album and re-listening to it again. So, I mean, and especially, and it's an inconsistent album. It's got 13 songs. Not all of it's top notch, but it starts off really good. I think Been Away Too Long and Non-State Actor are terrific tracks. By Crooked Steps is really good. Then it falls off a little bit, but then Blood on the Valley Floor, Bone of Birds, really, really good. Attrition's really good. Then it kind of meanders a little bit, and then it ends really well. I think Eyelids, Mouth, and Rowing is really strong. It's a moody album. It's not your typical put on a Soundgarden album when you're having a party type of thing. But I think there's enough different stuff going on here that I'm finding very appealing. And again, Martin said, even all those years away, they still a lot of genius going on in this album. And I totally agree. And I think I see this in a better light than I did back when it first came out. So that's my number 4, King Animal. And I love the cover. The cover's the coolest thing ever. So
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. All the covers actually not bad. Mm-hmm. All right. What do you got for number 4, Martin?
So 4, I've got Ultra Mega OK. I thought this would be lower. I knew Louder Than Love would be kind of low because that one always kind of put me off, and I wasn't sure where King Animal was going to come in. But this kind of flipped for me because I hear this and I hear a lot of Green River and I hear Mudhoney and I hear that early spirit of grunge where it is very experimental. I think there's less doom on here than there is on Louder Than Love. But yeah, Nazi Driver's got that Mudhoney grunge sort of thing going on. A lot of chaos, right? Head Injury, again, reminds me of Green River. Flower is really cool on here, as you mentioned, Hack. There are the 3 little short things, but if you can ignore those. But yeah, there's a little bit of the doom stuff. I definitely don't want the Smokestack Lightning cover, Howlin' Wolf on here. But yeah, A Mood for Trouble is cool with kind of fat, some acoustic layered in there. I love the production of this album too. For some reason, this just sounds like a good analog, interesting production. I think they really blew it on Louder Than Love, and that's really the only not great production I think out of all of them. So this one really kind of surprised me and moved up, and I did probably give it a little extra props for being so early for to be in here at 1988 doing this, and everybody thinks grunge broke in 91. It's just a perfect blueprint sort of early grunge album. Not as good as the Green River album, but almost. So this one was a pleasant surprise.
Okay, so my number 4, Down on the Upside, opens with a great track, Pretty Noose, is amazing. Rhinoceros is a cool riff, and they do this a few times where what I really like about the riff is it falls back on itself. It's almost kind of a proggy thing, which is very cool. Zero Chance is great. Again, almost proggy. Dusty is another great track. Just again, Burden in My Hand, great. Melodic and cool. Blow Up the Outside World, another light and shade. There's a lot of that sort of light and shade Zeppelin thing. The the mellow verse, and then the heavy chorus, that type of idea. This would be a much better album if they shaved off like 5 songs. It's too long, and the additional songs, they just detract from what otherwise would be like a nice, tight, cohesive record. There's too many songs on there. Like, do some editing. Some editing would be great. But again, there's really good songs on here, but then there's those other ones that are just kind of like Pete. I like the term you use, kind of meandering. It's we're gonna do more of this, and it just what we want the good stuff. Leave that stuff on the cutting room floor. But anyway, yeah, that's my pick. Upside.
All right. Top 3 for me are top notch. And,
yeah,
and I've had some movement in my top 3 since I did not expect this to happen, but one album was not to be denied for me to be able to move from the spot it was 4 years ago. So my number 3 is Super Unknown from 1994.
Oh,
terrific album, right?
Yep.
I feel bad even putting it at number 3 because it's, their biggest album, and it's so many classics on here. Let Me Drown, My Way, Fell on Black Days, Super Unknown, the title track, Black Hole Sun, Spoon Man is terrific, Day I Tried to Live. I mean, Cornell is just a beast on this album, just a beast. But again, it's a long album. Not that there's really any bad songs on here, but I just think that my number 1 and my number 2 for me, there's just no topping them where my head's at right now. But this is terrific. This could easily be my number 1. It has been my number 1 at various times, and I played the shit out of this when it first came out, as I'm sure most people did. And it still sounds really good today. It's one of those 90s albums that you play it today, and you're like, this could have been released today, and it still sounds fresh. So great album. It's my number 3, though.
Yeah, man, that album was like the Bible for bar bands in the 90s, dude. Everybody wanted to play that stuff. Yeah. Very cool. All right, what about yourself, Martin?
Okay, so for number 3, I've got Down on the Upside. May 21st, 96, went platinum. Kind of self-produced, but Adam Casper involved as well. 67 minutes. Yeah, 16 songs. I think everything's a song on here. To me, this is almost like the album. Again, these guys are just so genius, and it sounds great, but still sounds trashy and big and lively, right? But again, I think this is one where it's almost like the Soundgarden album. I could keep going back to and finding new things in because I never know it very well. But yeah, Pretty Noose, I think, is the best thing on it. It's the first thing, and it was a single, right? Although it's got that weird title. Rhinosaur, same thing. So you start out and you start going through this, and by the end of it, you're just in this Soundgarden garden. You're just in this wilderness where you're just like song after song after song. And the thing is, yeah, they've got that thing going where there's the little fast ones like Ty Cobb sort of thing in here, right? But they do, the other thing that bothers you about these 16 track albums like this is that they do a lot of just psychedelic jamming in some of those Doom songs. And when the Doom goes over to like jammy blues, I'm really checking out, sort of thing. Like it just seems like a big drug trip for however 30 seconds or 45 seconds that they're just doing, noise collage stuff, right? But yeah, there's a track on here, And Unkind, later on, which again, it's a great thing that they do because they're so non-obvious and so unconventional that it reminds me of No Means No a little bit. that this great sort of geometric Canadian sort of progressive punk band, right? And these guys were big No Means No fans, so you get that a little bit with them. But yeah, just a long album. I mean, you got to sort of give them credit that after Super Unknown, it seems like it's less full of hits, kind of thing. You've got Blow Up the Outside World, but to me, they almost went too far with that one. I mean, when I get to it later, I love some of those other mellow songs, but this one just went a little bit too Beatles, psychedelic Norwegian Woody for me, kind of thing. So yeah, I've got this one at number 3.
Yeah, I mean, in all their records, there's always those tracks, those experimentation tracks where they're just like, it's just a lot of sound and there's lacking in melody and, structure. And that's kind of where they lose me, and it's always those extra tracks that should not be on the record. But,
I always got the impression Kim loved doing that sort of thing. That just
making sounds. Let's make a guitar sound like anything but, that kind of thing. All right,
coffee delivery and everything, huh?
We can continue. This is proof, if anyone has any doubt, that I am in fact Canadian. There you go.
Yeah.
All righty. Okay, so I have my number 3, and I think I like this a little bit more, is the King Animal, which is their reunion record. And, I mean, it's a great record to prove that they still had it, but unfortunately, it's too damn long. But man, what a way to start! Been away too long. Very apropos and a great opener. Crooked Steps, just a great device again, where the riff falls onto itself. Again, it's like kind of proggy. They're as close as they got to proggy, but I really dig it. Blood on the Valley Floor, great riff. Bones on Birds. The guitar work on this is amazing. Like, some of the guitar work is really, really good on all their records, actually. Attrition, cool straight up rocker. Like, they always threw those in, like you were saying, Martin, to kind of break it up. Halfway there is just filled with hooks. Like, that's a very radio friendly track, which a lot of their songs aren't, but that is very radio friendly. Again, shave off maybe 2 or 3 songs, and this would be an even better record. It is a good record, but it would be an even better record. But I was, when they came together, it's again, they still had it, man. They were still writing some really, really good songs, and this is 2012. So yeah, they could have done another one, like, I don't know what the circumstances were at that point, but man, they still had it. So
funny, everything we're saying here. Like, I did a podcast episode called "This Album's Too Long," right? And and the fact of the matter is, I mean, literally, if you took a song or two off, literally, it's a worse record, right? I mean, because there's nothing there, right? You've taken off some music and you've got nothing there. So it's like literally a worse record. But it, there's all that weird stuff that you're supposed to, what the brain makes you think when you say that is that it makes you focus and spend more time on those other songs, I guess. Right. So the idea is there's 12 songs instead of 16, and you spend mathematically the same amount of time with the album. You'll respect those 12 a little more and learn them better and get them in your head, and you'll like them. Right? So it's such a weird concept, though, isn't it? Right. Give me less music.
I mean, for me, when I listen to a record, like, for me, like, I can 45 minutes. That's like for me, that's the maximum, right? Like, I don't want to hear more than 45 minutes of one band, on one record. Like, that for me is sort of like, that's it. Like, that's where my cutoff is. So whatever that works out to, like 12 songs or whatever. When I start seeing, records that are like 60 minutes plus, it's like, okay, that's not one listening straight through. That's like, I got to break this up.
But the funny thing, Hack, though, get this, though. I mean, the funny thing is, we loved it when bands in the vinyl age made a double studio album, right?
Of course. Yeah.
That's like, oh, now we respect every single song even more, right?
Yeah.
Because they've fortunately split it up into 4 sides for you, but you think they're super smart and they're doing this, and like every song must be genius, and what a trip they're going to take us on.
Yeah.
When you do it on CD and you just read this long list of songs, it's different, right?
just the getting
I
up
think
and
that was
flipping the
occasionally,
record.
right? That wasn't happening all the time. So you would every now and then you get a double album or a double live album. But like when we got to the CD age, every single release was 70 minutes long. It's like so
Yeah.
you buy like 5 new albums a month, and every one of them is 70 minutes long. It's just like, oh my god, trying to get through every one of them. So it's like a chore.
Yeah.
But when you got vinyl and it's like you got double albums, even single albums, at least you got it breaks up a little bit because you got to get up and flip it, right? So you get a little bit of it.
The other thing is you could physically look at the songs too, right? You take that vinyl out and you're looking at it and you see the bands and you see what's light and you see what's dark. And we would go get albums from stores. And if it happened to be one of those situations where it was used and you could pull it out and look at it, you could tell just by looking at it how many heavy songs there were. Because if the grooves were lighter colored, that meant there was a lot of noise going on. And if the grooves were, if it was very dark, right? Because dark is on your way to completely jet black, which is the space between the songs, right? So
Right.
you knew when you saw a lot of dark on it, it's like, okay, that's totally mellow there. There's no drums there. I can see it, right? So that was the other thing. You could literally look at the songs. You could see how long they were when they went from light to dark to shade. You could work out what was going on in Stairway to Heaven without even hearing it, right?
I wish I knew that when I was a kid.
That's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Completely true. Yeah.
I would have saved so much money.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like this Eagles album doesn't look heavy.
Later. I mean, pull it out and look at an album one day, and you'll see what I mean. It's just obvious, right?
Yeah, now I gotta do that. I gotta go back and look at some of my records. I'm like, yeah. Oh wow, that's hilarious. All right. We're down to number 2. What do you got, Pete, for number 2?
Okay. So moving up for me from number 3 to number 2 in this ranking is Louder Than Love. I always liked it. This is the album that really, like I said, kind of caught my ear when these guys came out. I remember seeing like one of their videos was a Hands All Over maybe, or I don't even remember which one it was, or maybe it was Loud Love on MTV's Headbangers Ball. And I'm like, look at these guys. Listen to this, right? You got this singer with long hair. He's got like a mix of like Dio and Gillan and these big Sabbathy riffs. And that's what I love about this album. It's just this guy wailing over these big, menacing, doomy songs. I mean, this is like a dark, depressing album. And so many great songs. Ugly Truth Kills, Hands All Over is great. Gun is just killer. I love the riffs on this album. So good. Power Trip is great. Full on Kevin's Mom is a lot of fun. Loud Love is great. Big Dumb Sex is great. I just, in re-listening to this catalog recently, I'm kind of like, I had to move this up because I love doom metal so much anyway. And I think in my headspace today, this is more, I think, of a favorite album in this catalog than the Super Unknown is. And so that's why I kind of leapfrogged that in my ranking. But yeah, just great stuff. Love it. So heavy. To me, their heaviest album, but great stuff.
Yeah, it's a good one. All right. What's your number 2, Martin?
Okay, 2, I've got Bad Motorfinger next. I think pretty much Rusty Cage and Jesus Christ Pose are my 2 favorite Soundgarden songs. They're both awesome, right? I used to think they're kind of like toys in the attic for some reason. They just both reminded me of that, right? Diddly fast riff kind of thing. But the funny thing is, a lot of the rest of it, I was just looking up here again. I'm thinking, 12 tracks, so it's a nice short album. But I looked it up. Yeah, it's 57:42, right? So of the 12 tracks, I'm looking on the wiki here. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them are 5 and 6 minutes long. One of them's even 6:55, Slaves and Bulldozers. So they're pretty long, right? So it's almost like the songs could have used an edit on this, right? Every single song could have used a bit of an edit. But as I look at the rest of it's kind of just your standard mix of almost like, to me, this is like just your slight improvement on Louder Than Love because it's got the 2 absolutely standout tracks on it, right? The rest of it has that mix of the doominess, the grunge, a little bit of the fast stuff going on as well. But just better songs and much better production. I noticed on the wiki that Kim called it a heavy metal white album. I think Down on the Upside is way more of a white album sort of situation, but also produced by Terry Date. But I think the production's just better on it. Went double platinum as well. So yeah, there you go. That's my number 2.
All right. Well, my number 2 is probably most people's number 1 because this was their biggest selling album, and that is Super Unknown. Man, Let Me Drown. Just a great. I love albums that start off with a great opener, and that's another great heavy opener. My Wave, love the riff and the vocal, the interplay, just fantastic. Fell on Black Days, another mellow verse, and then it gets heavy at the chorus. Great track. Super Unknown's got some absolutely killer riffage on it. Head Down, so melancholy and so great. Kickstand, there's your breakup song, your straight up rocker to kind of break it up again. Fresh Tendrils, so many great guitar parts. I dig most of the tracks on here. Again, the tracks that I didn't mention are okay, but I'd say of all their records, this is probably for me their most consistent. Where you know, all the songs are okay or good or great. So this is the most consistent. It's not my number one because my number one is not as consistent, but the good songs are freaking awesome. So, but still, number two. So, yeah. All righty. What do we got? What's our number ones? Well, what do you got?
Bad
left?
Motorfinger, 2 million
Ah.
copies sold. Yeah, I mean, I love the way this album sounds. It's got some of my favorite songs from the band's catalog in it. I mean, Rusty Cage, Outshine, Slaves and Bulldozers, Jesus Christ Pose. Jesus Christ, what a great 4 songs to kick off an album. So good. Face Pollution is great. Searching with My Good Eye Closed, so good. Drawing Flies, Holy Water. Holy Water's terrific. My God, New Damage. I love, this album to me, it's not quite as like bulldozing heavy as the album that came before it, but I think this is the album that gives you the catchy songs and the real heaviness better than any of the other albums, not by much, but and it, like I said, it's got a couple of my favorite songs in the catalog, so it just automatically moves this one to number one. Just so good, and Chris just sounds amazing on this album. What's so great about this band? It's kind of like there's a lot of other bands in rock history where you have that dynamite lead singer and that just really unique guitar player, and it just makes such a great winning combination. So yeah, that's my number one. Had to be.
Cool. All right, what we got for number one, Martin?
So this is funny. Pete and I could have done this one on our show. What did we call it? But the one where it's like all you need is the greatest hits album, right? I'm really noticing that with this. Like every one of my Soundgarden songs are all the hits, right? And I just worked it out. My number one is Super Unknown. It's got 6 hits on it.
Yeah.
Bad Motorfinger has 3 hits on it. So Rusty Cage, Jesus Christ Pose, maybe Outshined. And then at a stretch, you would pick Blow Up the Outside World and Pretty Noose as hits. So you got 6, 3, and 2. No hits on any of the other albums. So like if you made a greatest hits albums with 11 songs, 6 of them would be from Super Unknown, and love them to death. Love My Wave. Just a good, bashy, heavy, catchy enough Soundgarden song. Fell on Black Days. Beautiful, cool, mellow one of theirs. Black Hole Sun, same thing. Day I Tried to Live is like of all their mellow songs, that's absolutely my favorite. And then I really like Spoon Man. We've got the Spoon Man single there. We've got the My Wave single there. These are both Digipack singles. But the funny thing about this album, so I was going through it and going, I love this. So the first 8 songs add up to 38 minutes. The back end of it is 31 minutes. And the back end of it is where it gets like, what is going on here, right? Like, I don't know any of these songs. They're all my adjectives here are nice texture, bluesy, mellow, psych, slow crap, dirty, noisy, dull, tabla, acoustic, psych, jam, tribal, psychedelic, right? So the back half, except for Day I Tried to Live. So if you took Day I Tried to Live and moved it into the front half, you'd have 9 songs and you'd have probably about 43 minutes and you'd have just this stellar album, right? The hack length of an album, right? So it's funny. Perfect. Even this one's got some fat on it, but I just love how still, and it sounds great. It's big and trashy. Michael Beinhorn produces it, which is quite surprising because he does Ozzy as well, right? But big, bashy, lively drum sound on it. 6 times platinum. But yeah, it's got less fat than all the other ones, and it's just chock full of hits, and I love all the hits. So what does that make me? I guess I'm a Soundgarden poser.
Yeah. No, but you know what? It's a common theme. We've all said the same thing, like you just got to trim the fat, like you said, and these albums would be shorter listens and every song would kick, but get rid of some of that experimentation, do that on your off time, put that on your records. But anyways, speaking of which, I think my number one probably is their shortest record, or I don't recall it being very long, which is maybe one of the reasons why it's my number one. I don't know. But Louder Than Love, dude. Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, the really impressive thing for me with this record is holy shit, from Ultra Omega, which I was like, to this one album, and they just went from 0 to 100. They just nailed it. They nailed their sound. There's the song structures, the hooks, like everything just boom arrived all in one shot. That for me is the biggest thing about this that really freaks me out.
Let me just interject something here. I thought I'd look it up for you. So it's 53 minutes in 1989. So 1989, CDs shorter. Are just starting to come in, right? So this is long for vinyl, right? So that's
I thought it was shorter than that. Okay,
that's like 27 minutes aside on vinyl. I bought vinyl of this.
I thought this was shorter. Maybe it was so good that I thought it was shorter because I was enjoying every song.
Well, that is relatively short for Soundgarden.
Short for them, right? Yeah.
But I mean, Ugly Truth as an opener, it's not a bad song, but for me, where it takes off is Hands All Over. I mean, what an amazing song. Great verse, great chorus. That riff is absolutely killer. Get on the Snake, man. What a riff. That's like probably my favorite Soundgarden song. That riff is just intense. And again, it's another one of those riffs. I love that device where like it falls back on itself. Like I love that. Full On Kevin's Mom is that's just a fun song. Loud Love is devastating. I mean, it's that trance-like riff. Love It, Uncovered. Again, another snaky riff that kind of runs through it. Big Dumb Sex is just absolutely killer. I mean, this has fewer highlights for me than some of their other records, but the ones that it does have are just that much cooler, and it's just that much better. And for whatever reason, I don't find this record when I'm listening to it doesn't seem too long. Maybe because I absolutely love the tracks on it.
I think it's very consistent from start to finish. Like you said, even though there's more blockbuster songs on some of the later albums, I think Louder Than Love from start to finish is just very solid. It's really not a lot of stuff on it. I don't think.
It's just it keeps your interest, and then you get these just these incredible songs, man. Like Get on the Snake, man. Like, what a riff. It's just what a song. That's probably my favorite of all of their tracks. Love that track. Cool. All right. So that was fun. So what let's go around. Pete, is there anything you want to mention coming up on the Sea Tranquility channel?
I mean, just the normal stuff. Martin and I are doing a show on Friday all about lead singers who don't write lyrics in their own bands. So that's gonna be that's coming up on Friday morning. We got the Monsters Den for all you for anybody who's watching who is a movie fan, not necessarily horror movie, which is what we normally do on the Monsters Den. We're actually doing a show tomorrow night for folks who are interested in upgrading from DVD or Blu-ray to 4K. And we're going to talk about some of the movies that have been released on 4K that would be good for someone who's looking to move into that space, and some discs you may want to check out. So that's coming up Friday with Martin at the Funhouse, and ranking the albums on Sunday, UK Connection on Saturday, and all the normal stuff. So See Tranquility here on YouTube.
Cool. Link below. What about yourself, Martin? What's going on?
Well, we just did our Contrarians weekly album cover show, but we've always got a lot of Contrarian stuff coming out. We've got the progressive rock diversity and creativity show. We had a good one about drumming with Peter Jones. And I've got my audio podcast, History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff. Just had one drop yesterday, which was all about, the ranking of the most famous heavy metal stars. I went through 15. Who are the most famous? And books wise, I just had a new book out 3 days ago. Perfect Water, The Rebel Imaginos. So it's a follow-up to Flaming Telepaths, Imaginos Expanded and Specified. So it's loosely based on the Blue Oyster Cult Imaginos story. So that's all martinpopoff.com.
Link below. So what do I got coming up? Well, check out in my original playlist, or it's right on my YouTube page. Check out my latest song. It's called Where's My Ride? So give that a listen. I'm doing a Saturday weekly show, basically Guitar Arsenal of 2024, going through what I currently own because it'll change, but probably by the end of the year it'll be different again. So check that out and recommend an album to review. Man, I got an album that, oh my God, this album absolutely blew me away. Check it out. I'm going to talk about it on Thursday. Every week, every Thursday at 6:00. You folks are sending me records to review, and I check them out, and I do a review the following Thursday. And this one is probably, I've been doing it now. I think this is like 25 weeks I've been doing it. This has got to be in the top 3. I'll tell you guys about it off air, but oh my God, what an amazing album. So anyways, I want to thank everybody for watching. You guys rock. We'll see you all here again next month. We will be doing Saxon. At the top of the show, we talked about their new record, Hell, Fire, and Damnation. Is that the correct title? Yep. Go listen to that record and check out the show next month. So we'll catch you all later. Have a great rest of your week, everybody, and we'll see you all next month. Cheers.